A very good morning, everyone. Welcome to StudyIQ IAS English. Welcome to the Hindu News Analysis session. I am Saumya, and like every day, the idea is to look at UPSC relevant articles from the Hindu newspaper, the New Delhi edition, to gather all the important points for the exams to understand with great clarity every concept from international relations, geopolitics, polity, governance, ecology, whatever has been covered in the newspaper most comprehensively. Yes, we always begin by the editorial segment because these are lengthy articles, and from there we cover all the smaller prelims oriented news. So, very good morning, Akansha. Good morning, Soham. Good morning, aspirant Sitaram, Ramu. So happy to see each one of you, my dear. God bless you. Love all of you. And yesterday, the UPSC mains results have been declared. I'm sure you all must be aware about that. What a awaited moment for everyone, right? So it is also a very inspiring moment. And from the bottom of my heart, I do hope and I pray every minute, every single day as I join you on this platform that in the next UPSC mains result, I want to see each of my aspirant, all the 52 aspirants that are with me right now in the Hindu analysis every day. I want to see your name there. I have to see your name there. So with all those lovely blessings and positivity, let's begin today's class. The first two articles are page number 10 because these are editorial articles. Remaining five articles are short. They are more prelims oriented. Very good morning, Eric Sumed. Very good morning, Neelam. Very good morning, Eric. Very good morning, Manish. Thank you so much, Manish. That's so kind of you. I'm highly humbled by your comment. So, good morning, and now let's quickly start with the first article for the day. Very good morning there. Jagdish, good morning. Okay, so the first article, editorial, page number 10, says the infirmities in the SIR of electoral roll. Now, I agree that we have covered lot of points when it comes to SIR, special intensive revision. We all saw how the Election Commission of India, in an emergency mode, in a very urgent mode, has recently conducted the SIR in Bihar. Why was it done in Bihar? Because assembly elections were coming. And right before the assembly elections, the ECI realized that so many eligible voters are missing from the electoral rolls. Unfortunately, majority of the missing voters were migrant workers and women. And that caused a lot of questions on the reputation of the ECI. So therefore, with the Supreme Court's approval, the ECI began the SIR process for Bihar. Today, we see it as a great success because right now, today, on 12th November, we have seen a news that 67% voters came and casted their vote. Definitely, it was successful. But immediately after that, the Election Commission of India is also saying that 12 more states and union territories will also now have their SIR. Many states like West Bengal are now going in for assembly election in 2026. So now we start the SIR across India in a pan-India mission. This article here is asking a question to you. Article has been written by a former Secretary General of Lok Sabha, and he is asking a question. In India, although SIR is an important exercise, but why is it always done in an emergency mode? Why can't we have a periodic SIR, say every 5 to 10 years? Why do we always wait for 21 years and when the elections are coming, suddenly in emission mode we start doing an SIR? That leads to chaos, panic, that leads to a controversy between Citizenship Act 1955, Part 2 of the Constitution, Articles 5 to Articles 11. On the one hand, and on the other hand, it leads to the question whether election commission is the right body. Does it have the power to decide who is the citizen of India? Absolutely no. And that's why this article is here right now. Do we need these kind of SIR, and how can we solve the conflict between Election Commission of India and the question of Indian citizenship? So let's quickly examine the article. Vikash, I'm meeting you after so long. So, very good morning and welcome to the class. Very happy to see you, Bachan. Also, Dipesh, I missed you for the last 2 days. Most welcome to the class, my dear. Mumtaz is here. Good morning, Mumtaz. Ko Jumba. As always, without you, we are so incomplete here. Sagar is here. Yogi Sai is here. And of course, Aspirant is here. Yes, that's correct. 64.66 in the first phase. Very good, Aspirant. Today, we are seeing 67% output. Absolutely. Very well said, Manish. So now let's begin quickly with this article here. Okay. Article says the Election Commission of India has now ordered a special intensive revision SIR of electoral rolls across 12 states and union territories. Fine. Okay. Why? Because the Bihar model is quite successful. When we are saying 67% people came out and gave their vote, much more than in the last 5 years. Because in the previous assembly election, Bihar saw about 62%. And now we are seeing 67% in just 5 years. What a great change. That is the success of SIR in Bihar. And now, therefore, inspired by that, the Election Commission of India has ordered an SIR that will be across 12 states, pan India, including Tamil Nadu, Kerala, West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Puducherry, Andaman Nicobar, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Goa. Of course, we have Gujarat. All these places will now have also Lakshadweep because assembly elections are due in all these constituencies. Earlier, a similar kind of SIR was also conducted recently, just now in Bihar, but the problem is we are saying it's a very good thing. Election Commission should keep revising periodically. It should definitely see which names need to be removed and which new entries have to be added. There is a very good idea behind SIR. Very good it is. GS paper 2, polity governance. But the opposition parties are raising a question. Opposition parties and critics are saying, why do you always have an SIR at the last moment? Why can you not do it periodically? Why cannot you do it before? Why do we have to do an SIR just when the elections are around the corner? Yes, this leads to panic. Yes, this leads to situation being that of an emergency. It leads to insecurity among people. It also leads to a lot of confusion, and therefore it raises a question on the constitutional validity of the SIR exercise. Now let's look at the constitutional dimension of SIR. It was because of Ramu that you and I have a good clarity today about what's the difference between Representation of People Act 1950 and 1951. We already discussed that while 1950 RPA is about making policies, 1951 is about implementing them on ground. With that in mind, there is a proper section called Section 21. Which section is that? Section 21. Section 21 of the Representation of People Act 1950, RPA 1950. There is a Section 21, and this Section 21 deals with preparation and revision of electoral rolls. What does it deal with? Preparation and revision of electoral rolls. What are electoral rolls? These are lists in which voters' names are mentioned. These are voter lists, people who will give their vote in a particular election. So under Section 21 of RPA Act 1950, the provision is to prepare and revise electoral roll. The electoral roll for each constituency must be prepared under the supervision of Election Commission of India. But it can happen in three ways. Revision can be of three types. What three types of revision? One revision is a mandatory revision before every general election to Lok Sabha or to state assembly. You have to prepare a proper electoral list. Revise it once. That's called mandatory. That's compulsory to do. Second is, under Election Commission of India's authority, it has the statutory powers to periodically keep on revising these rolls, to keep on revising whether the electoral rolls are valid or not. There is no such rule that you have to do it within a period of 5 years or within a period of 10 years. Whenever the ECI feels that there is a need to revise, yes, ECI can revise, especially with respect to states like Haryana, Bihar, Jharkhand, Uttar Pradesh, where the out migration ratio is very high. It makes a lot of sense that yes, the election commission keeps on revising either one constituency or many kinds of constituencies together. So, one is mandatory revision. You have to do it before every election. Second is also called as a special revision that you can do either for one constituency or for all the constituencies in a state, depending on what the situation is. Election Commission under its statutory power. What is a statutory power? Power given by law, by a statute, by parliament. There is a power that ECI has to revise the electoral roll when it thinks it is important. There is no limit to it. You can do it in 5 years, 4 years, 10 years, whenever you want to. Now, there is another rule. The rule is called rule number 25 from registration of electoral rules. Just remember that. Registration of electoral rules. These are called registration of electoral rules 1960. Under this, there is a special rule called rule number 25. It distinguishes between two types of revision. Now, this I'm going to ask you. I'm going to ask this question on Friday to everyone. Today, all my dear, beloved students are here. Okay, I'm sorry, Manisha. You are Manisha. I called you Manisha. I'm so sorry. Okay. So, Reshma is here. Good morning, Reshma. Good morning, dear. Yes, Vikash, that's correct. Correct, Kojumba. That's valid there. Okay. Anmol is also here. Amol is also here. So, good morning, bacha. Okay. So, now coming back to ECI. I just told you about two things. Section 21 of the Representation of People Act 1950 deals with preparation and revision of electoral roll. What did I just tell you? Election Commission has a statutory power. It can revise the roll anytime. One is a mandatory revision that you have to do before an election. Even apart from that, whenever you want to revise, go ahead and do a revision as per the situation. Now, there is a set of rules called Registration of Electoral Rules 1960. Within this, there is a specific rule called rule number 25. Always remember. Just like today you have learned Article 25 thoroughly. If I ask any student of mine, even at 2 a.m. in the morning, that bacha, what is Article 25 of the Constitution? I believe they will just get up and say PPP. Power to practice, propagate, and profess your religion. So similarly, if I ask which schedules are there in which states are there in the 6th schedule, at 3 a.m. also you will tell me AM/TM states. I know that. If I ask you which countries are the part of TIPA in Europe with which India has signed FTA, immediately you will start. So that is the spirit with which you should remember this also. There is a set of rules called Registration of Electors Rule 1960. In that, there is an article, a small rule called rule number 25. What does it say? It distinguishes between two kinds of revision. One, summary revision. Another, intensive revision. Please remember. Rule number 25. One is called intensive revision. Another is called summary revision. Summary, intensive. Summary, intensive revision, summary revision. These are the two types of revision. Intensive revision, summary revision. Just remember, what is a summary revision? A summary revision, just like the name says, summary, sum. It is a short, quick update before the elections. Short, quick update before the election. Quick. Elections are coming. ECI conducts a summary revision. Quickly, ECI will decide which names to be added, which names to be deleted. Few small minor errors are there that will be taken care of. As the name says, summary revision, a quick short one before the election. Second is called intensive revision, what you just saw in Bihar. That is a more descriptive one. It means comprehensive door-to-door enumeration. It is almost like preparing a new electoral roll. It is almost like preparing a new electoral roll. It is time consuming. It takes a lot of manpower. It is expensive. Therefore, it cannot be done before the election. It is impossible. What happened in Bihar right now was a very huge emergency. Ideally, we should not have any intensive revision before the election. It is an expensive exercise. It needs human capacity, human resource. It is a detailed process, door to door enumeration. There is hardly any difference between intensive revision and new preparation, fresh preparation of electoral rules. This is why the author of the article is asking, why do we do intensive revision before the election? Intensive revision should be done during non-election years. Yes, non-election years. Every year there is no election. The years in which there is no election, free, vacant years, that's when you have to do SIR. So that you have time. There is no panic. You can give citizens also an opportunity to prove their documentation. Then we will not have the kind of emergency we had today in Bihar, that Supreme Court had to come in between and say that, okay, if people don't have documents, start using their Aadhaar cards. That is absolutely invalid. But we had to do it. What to do? There was no time only. All because it was very badly timed. So please always understand there are two kinds of revisions. Summary revision, intensive revision under rule number 25 of Registration of Electoral Rules 1960. Summary revision is valid. Before every election, do it. Quickly do it. No problem. But you cannot do intensive revision right before the election. It should be done in the non-election year. And that's the controversy of today. The controversy is arising because Election Commission of India decided to conduct special intensive revision in 12 states immediately before they are going for an election. Does that make any sense? How can you expect special intensive revision to take place few months before the election? The timing is very, very wrong. It leads to panic, errors, exclusion, delays. No SIR. Hardly any SIR was done from 2003 to 2024. So many elections happened in the process. Why was there no SIR done? Today, opposition parties are blaming very rightfully that is there a political motive behind doing an SIR immediately before an election? Naturally, people will doubt you. Naturally, people will doubt the government. If before the election you start doing SIR, door to door enumeration, why people will not doubt you? Yes, they will doubt you because that is not the time to do it. You should have done it when there was no election. And today, if you are do summary revision. Why are you doing intensive revision, by the way? Similar controversy happened last week in Assam. When the government said for Assam also, let's do an SIR. Why will people in Assam cooperate with you now? In 2019, they conducted the NRC, National Population Register, was created there. Today, why will they cooperate by giving you same documents again? Naturally, if you do it before the election, people will get scared. That what if they are trying to exclude minorities? What if it is again about creating another national population register? So these fears are valid. Let's understand India is a polycultural country. It's a very sensitive situation here with thousands of communities, ethnicities, race and language groups. You cannot arbitrarily expect people to give their documents months before the election. It is not transparent. So therefore today critics are arguing special intensive revision under Rule 25 of the Electoral Rules 1960 is absolutely invalid. It is a breach of transparency in democracy. If you look at the constitutional aspects of this article, it touches upon Article 326 of the Indian Constitution. Every citizen of India above the age of 18 has a right to universal adult suffrage. They have a right to give their votes to elections in Lok Sabha and to the elections in State Assembly if they are 18 years plus. However, citizenship is a fundamental criteria for inclusion in the electoral roll. No, no alien can give vote. No foreigner can give vote. Indians can give vote. But who is an Indian? Today the question is, who is an Indian? Who will decide? Yes, Vikash, absolutely, that's correct, Reshma. But who will decide? Who is a citizen? Who will decide? Will Election Commission decide who is a citizen of India? No. Citizenship, please remember, is governed by Part 2 of the Indian Constitution. Articles 5 to Article 11 deal with citizenship. There is a proper act, Citizenship Act 1955, administered by the Ministry of Home Affairs. That decides who is the citizen, not the Election Commission. So by conducting a last minute SIR and asking people to prove their documents to be reviewed by Election Commission and then to take a call on who can give their vote is absolutely unconstitutional. It is not valid. ECI is now breaching its responsibilities and its limits. While preparing the electoral roll, Election Commission should ensure only Indian citizens are enrolled in that list. Election Commission is but not the authority to decide who is the citizen. It cannot even verify your citizenship. It can only verify the documents that are prescribed, that are allowed by the central government Ministry of Home Affairs. And still, because there is no clarity on these documents, so many times Election Commission of India has taken its own decision and said in Bihar, in Assam, who is a citizen and who is not. Election Commission then becomes the authority who decides which documents should be accepted legally to cast your vote and which cannot be. Recently, there was a controversy about Aadhaar card. Election Commission of India said, I will not use Aadhaar card as a proof of citizenship because Aadhaar is an identity, Aadhaar is a residence proof. Aadhaar is not a proof of your citizenship. But then what happened? That is the problem when you do special intensive revision last minute. What could the Supreme Court do? People were upset. People were getting excluded. So Supreme Court came in emergency and Supreme Court said, okay, allow Aadhaar card also. Allow Aadhaar card. This time as an exception. And then allow people to have their names in the voter ID. Although it is absolutely a breach of the right of citizenship. So the question remains today. Who is the decider of citizenship? Election Commission or Supreme Court? Every time we have a last minute confusion, this confusion will continue to happen and the conflict between the jurisdiction of ECI and Ministry of Home Affairs will continuously keep on ongoing. Now, a very important Supreme Court case coming from 1995. It is called as Lal Babu Hussain versus Election Registration Officer. Let me quickly write the name down. It is called Lal Babu Hussain. Lal Babu Hussain versus Electoral Registration Officer. A very important case from 1995. In this case, the Supreme Court had said, if once, please listen to me carefully, bacha, if once a person's name has entered in the electoral roll, it must be presumed that this person is the citizen of India. It must be presumed that this person has been thoroughly verified by the concerned officers. For example, the Election Commission appointed officers, booth level officers, they have all verified and only that's why the name is here in the electoral roll. And later if you remove this name, it will be like snatching away somebody's right to citizenship. You cannot put somebody's name and later remove that name without an adequate legal justification behind your action, because absolutely it touches upon Article 14, right to equality before the law. Law cannot be arbitrary when it comes to giving and taking away citizenship. Article 21, the right to life and liberty, the right to dignity also. You cannot add somebody's name in the voter ID and then suddenly remove that just because your legal process was faulty. It is not the mistake of this person here. And now looking at constitutional validity of SIR. SIR's timing, special intensive revision, what time is it done? Also associates with Article 324 of the Indian Constitution, which means the right of Election Commission, the duty of Election Commission to conduct free and transparent elections across India. Today, Article 324 becomes questionable because ECI is an independent body, but it has no absolute powers when it comes to deciding the citizenship. And conducting an SIR immediately before an election means that ECI is deliberately trying to harm Article 14 and Article 21. This is about procedural arbitrariness. It is not about following the procedure properly. It also raises a question of federalism in India. Many state governments feel that it is about central government trying to deliberately harm the opposition ruled states. State governments say by conducting last minute SIR, the central government and the election commission is also trying to interfere with our own administrative process. It raises a question on center state relationship too. And ultimately, it is also a breach of Article 19(1)(a), the right to freedom of expression in India. Without informing, if you deny somebody the right to vote, if you remove their name from their electoral list because they were a migrant worker, because it was a woman, because it was somebody who was digitally illiterate, because you did not conduct summary revision on time, because you are doing everything last minute, you are also breaching people's right to vote. Right to freedom, Article 19. Right to free speech and expression, Article 19, 1A of the Indian Constitution. Okay, so is there a solution? Yes. In future, Ministry of Home Affairs should in advance publish an official list of documents that will be accepted as a proof of citizenship. It should be done much before any kind of election revision takes place. A better coordination between election commission and state is important to ensure no voter name is deleted. Plus, digital verification should be done, but for those who are digitally illiterate. Kerala may be the first digitally literate state in India, but that's not true of many other states. So, a door-to-door enumeration becomes important with regards to special areas where people are still uneducated and backward. At the same time, Supreme Court should settle down all the constitutional questions around the powers of ECI under Article 324 and Section 21 of Representation of People Act 1950. I just spoke about it. That means, what was that? The power to prepare and revise electoral roll. That will lead to public transparency and more faith in the election process. That's it for this article. Quickly, the question. Absolutely, Vikash, that's correct. Citizenship Act 1995 was later amended also in 2002, 2019. One very important amendment was that two separate categories were there. People of Indian origin and overseas citizen of India. These two categories were later merged by the amendment of 2019. So you have to remember that also. Mumtaz, that's absolutely correct. PAN card, various cards, yes, Kojuba. You have mentioned it before many times that in some states it's not valid. Yes, that's very good. Absolutely. Brazilian model controversy, Rahul Gandhi, he's always in the news. What to do? How much can we study him? You tell me. Okay. Yes, Eric, it was a failure. In Assam, it was a failure. Correct, Vikash. Universal Adult Franchise. Yes, aspirant. 2019. That's correct. Absolutely. That is correct. That is correct. So many answers are coming. Quickly, the question. With reference to special intensive revision of electoral rolls conducted by ECI, look at the following question statements. 1. Under the RPA 1950, Election Commission can order revision of electoral rolls only once in 5 years before a general election. Only once in 5 years. 2. An intensive revision of polls under Rule 25 of Registration of Electors Rule 1960 is equivalent to preparing a new electoral rule. And 3. The Election Commission of India has the statutory legal authority to determine the documents to prove the citizenship of the citizens. And with regards to the answers, Reshma, aspirant, Dipesh, Vikash, Manisha, Sumed, Sitaram, Amol, Kojumba, Eric, everybody says it's B, and absolutely it is B. No doubts, very well answered. So proud of you as always. Correct. 3 is wrong. ECI has no right. Part 2 of the Constitution, Election Commission of India has no right. Part 2 of the Constitution, Citizenship Act 1955, Vikash mentioned all the amendments, all that has the right. Article 5 to 11 has the right. ECI has no right. And second is correct. Under Rule 25 of Registration of Electoral Rule, there are two kind of revisions that can be done, summary, intensive. Summary are quick, they should be done before the election, but intensive should only be done in the non-election year. because they are almost like doing a fresh enumeration. So very well answered, well understood, well, very good. One, not correct. There is no such limit that only once in 5 years you have to do. ECI has the statutory right to determine when is it needed and when it can be done. So very good. That's correct. That's correct, Manisha. Yes, yes, Vikash. Summary and intensive and well answered there. Well answered, Athok. That was correct. So quickly the next article, page number 10, editorial. Exploited workers, a labor policy making empty promise. Nothing new again. What are we looking at? We are looking at GS paper 2 because we are looking at a social problem. Remember, GS paper 2 has a very big topic on social justice. And one of the topics here then become the informal sector labors of India. So many times you and I have discussed about the informal sector. This article is also saying Government of India keeps on creating new rules. The very famous one was Social Security Code 2020. The draft policy was made by at least 26 states in India, but none of the states has fully implemented that. Social Security Code that came in 2020 by mixing all the existing Factories Act and labor laws. The idea was to bring informal workers at par on the same ground as formal workers by giving them fixed wage, pension, insurance, and medical benefits. But in reality, that could not happen. Today, once again, the Indian government is trying to create another set of laws called Shram Shakti Niti 2025. What is that? Shram Shakti Niti 2025. Shram, labor, Shakti, power, Niti, policy. So we are trying to create a new labor and employment policy. Shram Shakti Niti 2025. So what is going on in this article exactly? Okay, that's your last attempt. No problem. Definitely we can talk about it, Manisha. That's completely fine. Yes, you can definitely have Manisha. Tomorrow I'll ask the backend team and let you know how we can interact with each other. I promise I'll do that tomorrow. Okay, definitely I'll help you as much as I can. Okay, God bless you. All right, now back to the article. Indian government is now creating a draft. Indian government is now creating a draft policy called Shram Shakti Niti 2025. It was revealed by the Ministry of Labour and Employment. What is the objective of this policy? The aim and objective of this policy is to frame a future ready national labour policy by integrating social security, digital governance, occupational safety under the vision of Viksit Bharat 2047. We all know that India is aspiring to become the developed India. Atmanirbhar Viksit Bharat by 2047. Under that agenda, it is equally important that the Indian government tries to create a labor welfare policy that's based on digital integration, AI model of learning, new kind of skills, social security, and fixed wage and continuous labor skilling. That's the idea behind Shram Shakti Niti 2025. But it has triggered a lot of criticism from labor activists. Look at that. I am not saying it is being criticized by opposition leaders. It is being criticized by the labor activists themselves. It is being criticized by the economists. It's being criticized by constitutional experts. Why? Why is it being criticized? Now, this is very important. I want you to understand that. Good morning, Sankamitra. Yes, absolutely, Vikash Kojumba. That's correct. Article 1421. Yes, EFPO Kojumba. Why is it being criticized? Why? Let me give you a hint. Today, the Shram Shakti Niti 2025 is being criticized. Similarly, the Social Security Code 2020 is also being criticized for what? It is being criticized for diluting the rights of the workers. It is being criticized for diluting the labor power in India, trade union power in India, collective bargaining power in India. Why? The question is why. Let me explain. Whether it is Social Security Code 2020, whether it's the Shram Shakti Niti, there is one policy in common here. What is that? Both these policies are saying that government will now try to provide welfare for the informal laborers across Indian economy by using policies like direct benefit transfer. Direct benefit transfer. What is DBT? DBT happens when the government directly tries to deposit some amount of money, finance, into the account, the bank account of the beneficiary. A very good example can be from Bihar, Mukhyamantri Mahila Rozgar Yojana. That's a very good example of DBT. Janani Suraksha Yojana. Very good example of DBT. Yes. Today also under Social Security Code and Shram Shakti Niti, the Indian government says, I will transfer some money to the account of informal sector laborers directly to help them by giving them social insurance, by giving them maternity leave, by giving them benefits of some kind of provident fund, by giving them some kind of assistance. But there is a problem here. If the money will directly reach the account of the beneficiary, then labor will never be able to come together and fight collectively for their rights because they will not have the need to do that. If individually everybody starts getting benefit from the government, then why will we come together in the form of a trade union and do collective bargaining? Think about it. Think about basic logic. If there are 5 lakh people and the government is giving separate benefit to each one in their account, then why will they come together and fight for their rights? There is no need to do that. Then there will be no unity among them. And that's why whether it's Social Security, whether it's the Shram Shakti Niti, both are being criticized for violating the right of laborers to form trade unions and the right to collective bargaining by the people. This is all happening because unfortunately in a country like India, that's the third largest economy of the world today, 90% labor force comes from the informal sector. Can you imagine that? 90% of India's informal labor force, 90% of them will suffer. And total, how many people work in the informal sector? You will be amazed to know about 45% of our economy is based on informal sector work only. At the same time, who commented that just now? Who said that? Vikash said that. That yes, despite the fact that these people are working, in the informal economy, their contribution to the GDP is much more than those who are working in the formal sector. Just imagine, look at the paradox. People in the informal sector are contributing much more to the GDP. But in reality, 90% of them are not getting any benefits in return. Yes, because as per the report by International Labour Organization, 11 million people in India, how much? 11 million people in India are still a victim of modern day slavery. Can you imagine that? As per a latest report by ILO, International Labour Organization, created back in 1990, India being a founder member, total 8 conventions mandatory, India has ratified only 6 conventions. Correct? I spoke about it with you. Yes. Same International Labour Organization is saying today that in 2025 and 2024, 11 million people in India are victims of modern day slavery. They are being forced into forced labor. This is the highest amount of forced labor in the whole world, despite the fact that there is an article in our constitution called Article 23 that prohibits forced labor, that prohibits trafficking of labor. Look at that. Industries like seafood processing, textile, mining, quarrying, they rely on contract labor. They rely on daily wage labor. They are denied the right to insurance. They are denied the right to medical leave. They are denied maternity benefits. They are not given any kind of paid leave, even on the weekend. Even if they are sick, they are not given a leave. Sometimes, even if they want to give their vote, they want to go back to their home state and they want to cast their vote, they are still not given the leave. That's the reality of 11 million people in India right now, as per a report by ILO. All these people are victims of what you call as social dumping. All these people are victims of vendor system. They are hired by contractors and then they get jobs. And these contractors are not bothered about the unsafe conditions in which they work. Lack of electricity, lack of air conditioning, lack of safe drinking water, separate toilets for men and women, lack of breastfeeding places for women and their children, lack of childcare, lack of adequate sanitation. They are not given any of that. And look at the unsafe conditions in which they work. That further increases the risk of occupational hazard. Occupational hazard. Mining, bangle making, firecracker making. These people do not have any kind of safety equipment. Last time I also told you, in India, all the electronic waste that you and I throw out, all the old eroded laptops, mobile phones, batteries that we discard, all these are manually sorted by 60% people by hand. These are the manual scavengers. They get burnt. They are exposed to chemicals. They are exposed to dangerous radiation and still they do that work. And that's the situation of our 11 million people across the country. Is it not a violation of Article 14, right to equality? Is it not a violation of Article 15, which prohibits discrimination in employment on the grounds of caste, gender, place of birth, or religion? Because these people in the informal sector are majority those people who are the Dalits, who are the women, or who are the handicapped. Then imagine what equality are we talking about? Is it not about excluding those people who are also AI disabled? Now, there is a new word I'm teaching you here. We often say that vulnerable people are those who experience exclusion. Exclusion based on caste, gender, religion, disability, or transgender. Today, there is a new word. AI disability. What is AI disability? AI disability happens when somebody has no idea about technology. They are illiterate when it comes to AI and data and online work. And these are also people who are marginalized. Is it not a violation of Article 16? Equal employment in public jobs. Also, it is a violation of Article 19(1)(c). Don't get confused. In the last article, I spoke to you about Article 19(1)(a), the right to free speech and expression. Now I'm talking about Article 19(1)(c), the right to form associations and trade unions. Yes, Article 19(1)(c). Yes, Sumedh, Sangamitra, Vikash, aspirant. Manisha, what did I just say? Article 19(1)(c). What is that? The right to form associations and trade unions. And on that note, quickly, my smart students, tell me, which fundamental right includes now the right to form cooperatives? Can anybody tell me that? Yes. From 2021 onwards, we have created a separate ministry of cooperatives. The first minister leader was Mr. Amit Shah. Remember? From that time onwards, we are saying right to form cooperatives is also a fundamental right. Which article is that? Let me know. Okay. With that, let's come back to Article 19(1)(c). The right to make associations and labor unions. Is it not a violation of that? Yes, it is. That's the fundamental question in this article. Whether it is Social Security Code 2020 or whether it is the Shram Shakti Niti of today, both of them are violating Article 19(1)(c), the right to form associations and trade unions. Why? Because when you do a direct benefit transfer in the account of a laborer, when you create so many kinds of welfare policies, then laborers are not able to come together and jointly fight for their right, which means it undermines their power of collective bargaining together for their right. Very good, Sangamitra. That's correct. Reshma, Rishi, very, very, very good. Yes, Manisha, Vikash, Balram, absolutely, very good. Akash, brilliant, very, very good. Absolutely, very well said. Very good. Okay, so very good, by the way. I'm so happy, really happy. Now, Article 19(1)(c) is being violated. The right to form trade unions and associations is being violated because of all these social security codes. Plus, it is also a violation of Article 23, the right against exploitation and forced labor. Because in the informal sector, according to ILO, 11 million people in India today are victims of modern day slavery and trafficking. Look at Directive Principles of State Policy, Part 4 of the Indian Constitution, DPSP. What does DPSP say? Under Directive Principles of State Policy, there is an article called Article 41, Right to Work and Social Assistance. That should be the basis of universal social security. A violation of Article 42, humane conditions of work, including maternity benefits to women. Recently, 3 days before, one state in India has also passed a law of giving women menstrual leave every month, which is that third state to do so. One was Kerala, one was Bihar, but now, day before yesterday, one more state has done that. Which state is that? Quickly. Which state is that? Who remembers that? Very good, Reshma. Karnataka, absolutely. Very, very good. Very good. So now DPSP 42. Humane conditions of work and maternity benefit. Article 42. It forms the basis and the foundation of Social Security Code 2020. But if you look at today's Shram Shakti Niti has come with the idea of integrating existing social security schemes like employees provident fund, this thing policy. It also provides you Ayushman Bharat, PMJAY, Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, the e-Shram portal online that contains the names of all the informal labor workers and the state welfare boards. It is trying to integrate all of that. The idea is one nation, one worker ID. What's the idea behind Shram Shakti Niti of 2025? The biggest idea is one nation, one worker ID. No matter which state you come from, you will get all the benefits under Shram Shakti Niti by having one card that is registered in the e-Shram online portal. It is a good thing, but there are certain concerns here. What are the concerns? There is no compulsion on the part of the employer to contribute in the funding for welfare. The whole responsibility goes to the government. Is it easy for the government to give social security to 11 million people in India? Is it easy for the government? Yesterday I told you that for Indian government it is a big burden to provide money for non-contributory pension schemes. That's the idea behind the latest 8th pay commission, to see how much pensions should actually be given to people in the form of non-contributory funds. Today I am asking one more question. Is it valid for the Indian government to give welfare for 11 million people because the states are not ready to fund? They are refusing to fund. Is that valid? Employers are also not ready to fund. Private company owners say we are not going to fund. We are not contributing. We will not do that. What can we do about it? Another problem, it is completely digital. Policies like e-Shram, PMJAY, all of these are now being given in the online mode. What about those with low literacy? In India, 38% literacy is available in the poor households. And these are also the workers in the informal sector. How will they understand? Under Article 15, it is like indirect exploitation. Under Article 41, it means weak implementation of social welfare policies. And then there is another problem. Occupational hazard. Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. On paper, it promises gender-sensitive budgeting and auditing. It says we will conduct a compulsory auditing of every company in India. Any company with more than 10 employees is mandatory to implement the POSH Act 2015. Prevention of sexual harassment. You have to have an internal complaints committee. If you are a company with more than 10 members, you have to provide your employees basic welfare, amenities and facilities. But so many employers are not doing that. They refuse to do that. Government is saying it is mandatory to do gender sensitive auditing. We need zero fatalities by 2047 as India now becomes Viksit Bharat by 2047. Government says we want zero occupational death. Not one employee should die because of work related danger. Yes, because it is also in line with International Labour Organization's Convention 155, occupational safety. It is a part of Directive Principles of State Policy, Article 42. I just spoke about it. Humane conditions of work. But there are challenges. There is no clear cut punishment that is being given to those companies who are not following these gender-based auditing and budgeting. Digital auditing means so many informal workers don't even know how to raise a complaint. There is an absence of mental health. There is an absence of mental health and gender violence protection. This is also denying Article 21 of the Constitution. And in the end, the worst thing is using AI. Using AI for employment benefits. That's a very dangerous thing. Sometimes when you use too much AI is based on machine learning. What is machine learning? Machine learning means all the data so far is gathered, processed, and utilized to make future predictions. If we use existing data to make future predictions, then perhaps the same gender bias, same exclusion on caste, religion, gender, region, all of that will again be a part of new policies that are created through AI. There is also an absence of AI ethics. You cannot run computers for deciding welfare policies of people. You have to have various HR experts, psychologists, consumer behavior specialists, economists, doctors, engineers on board when you decide welfare policy for the informal sector. Today in India, we are still experiencing a major problem of low female labor force participation rate. Very few women are working. 35% is the rate. And what is the target? We want to push it to 37% by 2030. We are trying to extend social security to GIG workers, platform workers, equal pay for equal work. We are trying to now absorb and follow various conventions of International Labour Organization, such as the convention number 195, convention number, as I just mentioned, ILO convention number 155. But it is difficult unless we lack equal amount of punishments for the people who break the law, unless we have more AI awareness, unless we commit to follow Sustainable Development Goal 13. One, based on climate action, we need to create more green jobs. Jobs that are zero carbon emission, carbon neutral jobs. And Article 21, of course, to give people the right to life and liberty. All these are important issues here. Ultimate is about digital divide. Let us bridge this digital divide towards migrants, Dalit, women, and rural population. And this is only possible when, rather than taking away the right of Article 19(1)(c) to form trade union, you further only implement that right. Now, there is one more thing I want to say before I look at this question and the responses. India, we all know, is a member of ILO, but India still has not ratified two main conventions of ILO. One of these conventions India has not ratified is the Convention on Trade Union and Collective Bargaining. And that is also reflecting today in the Shram Shakti Niti. By individually tackling workers' problem, you are snatching away their right to collective defense. And that is a danger behind such integrated policies. Just remember all that we covered in this article, all the articles, ILO conventions, Shram Shakti Niti, e-Shram portal, all of that. Now the question. With reference to the Shram Shakti Niti draft, look at the following statements. The policy proposes universal social security account by integrating the existing employee provident fund, ESTI, ESIC, eShram, and all other welfare schemes to provide benefits to workers across the states. Two, the policy makes it compulsory to have social security contribution from both employer and the state, employer and the government for GIG and informal workers. And three, the policy aims to achieve near zero occupational death by 2047 by implementing Occupational Safety, Health and Working Conditions Code 2020. Which of these statements are valid? Answers are coming in. And the first answer given by Vikash, Dipesh, Reshma, Ramu, Sumed, Kojumba, they are all saying it's C, and then comes it is C only. Very good. Absolutely correct. Absolutely. Third is valid. We just studied that. First is also correct. Second is definitely not correct because that's the main problem also. There is no compulsion on the employer to provide contribution to the welfare fund, and that's why all the burden is coming on the government, making it a very dangerous trend. Now, quickly, the next article is coming from GS paper 3, an important article because it deals with India's carbon emission. Now, I will not go in utmost detail here because many things you are. Okay, is my video still? Is it a problem? Is it buffering? It's fine? Okay, thank you so much. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Bacha, for that. No. It is a rule that has been created. It's being now passed by the parliament. Okay, so it is different. Definitely, there are inputs from the Niti Aayog, but it will be a parliamentary statutory law that's now coming to take place of all the existing labor welfare laws. Thank you for confirming, Vikash, Dipesh, Ramu, and Sumedh. It's fine. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Sangamitra, is the problem still there? Sangamitra, can you confirm? Can you refresh your link? It's okay now? Thank you so much, dear. Okay, coming back to the agenda. Next article is GS paper 3. I will not go into utmost nitty gritty because you already know all these facts. I'm not repeating. But I just want to tell you the main agenda of this article. Now, please listen carefully. Listen a little carefully. Okay, it's a slightly technical point here. This article from GS paper 3 talks about carbon emission. What does it say? This article is pointing out towards a paradox. What is that paradox? Let me quickly say. Yes, it is global warming, but there is a paradox. Listen carefully. The paradox is that on the one hand, the problem is that India's overall carbon emission. Okay, there are two concepts. Let's be very clear about it. One is known as absolute carbon emission or absolute emission. Other is known as per capita carbon emission or per capita emission. These are two different things. Thank you for confirming, Sitaram Sangamitra. It's fine. I'm so glad. Thank you. Two concepts. Absolute emission, per capita emission. What's the difference? Absolute emission means the total amount of carbon emission or the total amount of greenhouse gas emission that a country does in a given period of time. Correct? Second problem is per capita emission. Per capita emission means how much emission is happening in a country per individual, per unit, per household, per company. Okay. So while first one is a macro estimation, it is a larger estimation of your collective emission. For example, India's emission. Another is the per capita emission, means individual estimation of how much is per unit emission coming from India. Very clear? There is a paradox happening in India right now. While in India, the per capita emission is very low. Very low. Indian people, Indian households, Indian companies individually are not contributing too much to greenhouse gas or carbon. It is very low as per the global average, which is a good thing. But the sad thing is, if you look at absolute emission, total emission that's coming from the whole country, then India is right now one of the largest countries which has a very high carbon emission. Why is this paradox happening? That's what this article is talking about. So although if you look at technical numbers, you will see that India is the third largest emitter across the whole world. Third largest carbon emitter across the whole world is India. After China on the top and US on the second spot. When you talk about absolute terms, now I'm not talking about per capita, absolute. Absolute carbon emission, top China, second America, third India. But the problem is, in the last few years, very good, absolutely, Ramu. That's a wonderful input coming from there. Yes, very good, Kojumba, Sitaram, Reshma, correct. We cannot forget that India is also the largest population in the whole world. We have surpassed China. We are the largest population. We are the third largest economy. We are the largest consumer-based market. Naturally, our energy demand is very high. How can we justify that and compare ourselves with countries who have very less population? The population of one European country equals to the population of one city or one state in India. There is no comparison here. Naturally, that's the paradox here. So overall, India's emission is on the third list after US and China. But in the last few years, that is between 2023 to 2025, a new trend has happened that per capita emission grew at a very fast rate. Just in these 2-3 years, the per capita emission became a little high. For example, it increased more than 0.4% as compared to other countries, overall more than 3.7 of the global average. If suddenly in the matter of 3 years, 2 years, per capita emission keeps on increasing because of rising industrialization, because of rising change towards renewable energy sector, because of more technologies like rare earth metal mining, critical minerals mining. If suddenly we are shifting towards so many new technologies, naturally per capita emission increased. It surpassed the global average, and today it has resulted in the problem that we are at one of the topmost level when it comes to absolute carbon emission. And carbon emission is usually measured like that. Okay, so today we are at the top. For example, India has registered about 165 MTCO2 of carbon emission only in 2024. This is the highest among all the countries. So today India is standing at a very strange paradox. Per capita emission low, but absolute emission very high because we have a very large population. Even if the per capita is low, in absolute numbers, it registers as very high. Yes, absolutely, Yogi Sai. It is 1.4 billion people. The world has 8 billion people. India has 1.4. Plus, in some states, fertility is still 2.8. Bihar, Jharkhand, UP. Naturally, we cannot expect that we will compete with other nations here. So that is why not only carbon emission, but our GHG is also very high. And what is GHG? Global anthropogenic emission. What is anthropogenic? Caused by human. So GHG means global anthropogenic emission in India is very, very high right now. It is about 57.7 GTCO2e. What is GTCO2e? GTCO2e means gigatons of carbon dioxide equivalent. It's very high. It's 57.7. Why is it happening? It is happening because we still are depending on coal. Coal when it comes to industries and agriculture. We still depend on irrigation based on coal powered plants for so many needs that we have. And there is nothing we can do much about it. Although on paper, in 2025, 50% of India's total energy is coming from non-fossil fuel. Installed capacity 50% is coming from non-fossil fuel, but in reality, the problem is that carbon emission coming from power generation is the biggest source of pollution in India. So if you make a list of all the reasons, at the top is power generation. Very good, Yogi Sai. Yes, Dipesh, it is ultimately carbon-based power generation. Point number 2, industrial combustion. Point number 3, transport and vehicle. Point number 4, methane emission coming from agriculture. Many states in India are still completely dependent on kharif crop, rice. Rice needs water. Water intensive crops always lead to water logging and a higher amount of methane emission in the atmosphere. Then comes the problem of waste management. India's waste turnover is very high. 16% of the total world in 2024, all because of agriculture, management. Together added, it contributes to 16% share globally in 2024. Plus the ongoing deforestation. A very small case study can be the Great Nicobar project. 1,300 acres of forest being removed from a delicate area called Nicobar Island. And in return, we are being promised Campa, compensatory afforestation in Haryana. All these are points enough to prove the fact that deforestation is really very high in India. So what is the problem today? Although Indians are not using or emitting as much carbon, as much emission as people in the developed countries, people abroad eat more meat and protein. Their usage and their carbon footprint is much higher per capita. India is still poor. We do not eat that much protein. We are not depending so much on meat and poultry. We do not use the kind of technology that West is using. Ideally, per capita carbon footprint in India should be very low, and it is very low. But still, we are too many people living in India. Naturally, if you add up everything, it will surpass the total amount of emission. And then added to that is the social problem of deforestation, power generation, vehicles, industrialization, water pollution, waste dumping. Naturally, our total carbon emission will be high. What can we do about it? Regardless of low per capita emission, we are still on the top after US and China when it comes to 3,700 megatons of carbon equivalent in 2024. We are third in absolute number. Some people are saying when it comes to GHG, global anthropogenic emission, India is on the top. So these are certain problems we have to think about it. Yes, yesterday we were very good, Manisha. Yesterday we were talking about vulnerabilities of South Asia, glacial lake outburst, land erosion, landslides, flooding. When we are talking about the COP30 summit, and today this is the reality. So, what's the solution? One thing is India cannot be compared with the Western countries given the high amount of population that we have. Second, India cannot compete with foreign countries because we still do not have that much carbon finance. We don't have the money to suddenly shift towards green energy. It requires money. Solar power needs money. Hydropower needs money. Wind turbine needs expensive wind magnets. Who will finance all that? Who is ready to help us? A country like America will help us, who itself has walked out of the Paris Agreement. Poor countries like Brazil are ready to promise 69% reduction in NDC. And look at America. It walked out. With such responsible behavior, irresponsible behavior coming from developed West, who will give money to India? For 1.4 billion people to suddenly switch towards green energy? Not possible. That's difficult. At the same time, we also have a very erratic weather, climate change. Suddenly switching to solar energy, suddenly switching to wind energy without a proper grid security system is again impossible. Yes, absolutely aspirant. Stubble burning. Our farmers do not have the latest technology like West to burn the kharif rice leftover. We don't have that much money to use automatic destroyers for paddy stubble leftover. We don't have. We have to depend on burning. So many poor farmers are doing that. Will that not add to pollution? It will. So what is the result today? Although per capita emission is less than global average, total absolute emission in India is very high. And this is a problem we have to really talk about when now the countries are meeting in the COP summit in Belém, Brazil. That India is one country which has always aligned with the Paris Agreement. We are one country who still in 2022 had updated our NDC as 45% of GDP, which is a very big number for a country like India. But still today, for India to suddenly stop its carbon dependence, coal and charcoal dependence, and switch to green energy without proper help from a financed, technologically advanced country is very difficult. That means no matter how much we try, overall emission factor is very difficult to control. Is there a solution? Yes. One, popularizing and subsidizing at a large scale solar energy, hydro energy, sustainable agriculture. That's one thing. Second, decarbonizing the power sector. Because the power sector is the highest contributor to greenhouse gas and carbon emission, let's decarbonize that. By 2030, let's aim that at least 80% of our total installed capacity should come from non-fossil fuel. And we should also control our grid emission factor. You and I have discussed about the grid emission factor. It is very high in India. For those who were not there, what is grid emission factor? The amount of carbon dioxide you emit per unit of green energy that you create. We have to reduce that by creating more technologically advanced procedures and carbon neutral procedures. That needs money and R&D. Second, let's control agriculture methane emission. How can we do that? Control rice emission. Control waterlogging in the paddy fields. Control the livestock population, shift towards healthier diet. You and I have spoken about functional foods and smart proteins. GS paper 3. We have spoken about it. Smart proteins. Rather than only doing animal slaughter and dairy farming, we can depend on smart proteins. What are smart proteins? Laboratory created meat, fortified foods, functional proteins, leguminous foods. All these contribute to more protein, less dependence on animal farming, and animal farming is also a very big contributor towards greenhouse gas emission because it needs more water. India needs to therefore also do sustainable waste management, promote growing more trees, afforestation, reclaim more areas as wetlands. Do not discard electronic waste that leads to chemical contamination of the air. Ultimately, align your domestic policies with Sustainable Development Goal number 7, affordable clean energy to everyone. Sustainable Goal number 30, climate action. Sustainable Goal number 12, responsible consumption, minimization, and production. All these initiatives can be done by awareness, government protocols. That's the need of the hour. Yes, absolutely, Eric. Wildlife also leads to so much carbon emission. Wildfire, it does. And why does wildfire happen? Because the forests in the Himalaya, especially Shivalik Himalaya, covering the states of Uttarakhand, Himachal, these are all the forests which have cheer pine trees. And cheer pine is a very dry tree. It's a very fragile tree. If heat waves become too much, it's very easy for these forests to catch fire. It's difficult to control that. Okay. So very well said, Vikash, aspirant Rishi. That's correct. Yes, absolutely. We can have a solution, Manisha, to set up a small threshold fund. That is correct. Paris Agreement. That's true, Manisha. That's also correct. Very good, Reshma. That's a valid number that you're mentioning here. Correct. So now answers are coming. Let me come back to the question. With reference to global greenhouse gas emission, look at the following statements from 2024 data. One, India recorded largest absolute increase in total GHG emission, that is the global anthropogenic emission, among all countries in 23-24. To fossil fuel combustion accounted for about two-thirds of total global GHG emission in 24, and 3, India's per capita GHG in 2024 were higher than the global average. Everyone is saying answer is A, and absolutely answer will be A. We all know third is incorrect because in India the paradox is while per capita GHG is low, Indians do not have a big footprint of carbon, but because we are a highly populated country, when you add it up together, plus factors like dependence on power generation of coal, vehicle, agriculture, methane emission, deforestation, it creates a situation where our absolute emission is much higher than other countries. So very well answered there. It all began with the answer coming from Reshma, Dipesh, aspirant, Vikash, Rishi, Sangamitra. All are saying it's A. Reshma gives us the data also. Vikash is mentioning the Mishti scheme to conserve mangrove. Thank you for that input. Yes, for example, Sundarban in West Bengal, today they are endangered as per IUCN. Also, Bitar Kanika in Odisha, again one of the greatest marine biodiversity spot. So correct, Balram, Sita Ram, Mumtaz, Manisha, Ramu, all valid answers. Very well done. Now quickly the last lengthy article and we are almost done. So this says, what do forensic experts do after a blast happens? Now you know why are we talking about this? The topic is Science and Technology, GS paper 3. Science technology, because we are trying to understand forensic technology, crime technology. What technology is used by criminal experts when they try to find answers to various kinds of terror attacks? All this is happening because on November 10th, 2025, there has been a very massive explosion near New Delhi's Red Fort. It has killed about 13 people as per the latest data, and of course, many more vehicles were gutted in the fire. It has created a wave of panic. Yes, speculations are ongoing. Some people have also been arrested and they are claiming links to various terror organizations. Within 30 minutes of the blast, the forensic expert team of the Delhi Forensic Laboratory, the DFL, Delhi Forensic Laboratory, within half an hour, yes, absolutely, Kojumba, it reached the spot. Ammonium nitrate, yes, Vikash, absolutely, the technology used for making these bombs. So the government has discovered ammonium nitrate, responsible behind the explosions, the chemical that causes these explosions. Very, very good. Now, yes, 13 are killed, Rishi, that's correct. Yes, Titaram. So forensic experts came within half an hour. They reached here and they started investigating the site to determine the causes behind this terror attack. What is the role played by forensic experts? The biggest role played by forensic expert is that they determine the cause and the source of explosion. Whether it was deliberate, whether it was accidental. Second, they try to identify what material was used. Just like Vikash is saying ammonium nitrate, that's true. They also try to relate to which chemical has been used for that. Third, they also try to reconstruct the sequence of events. They try to create a lead. What must have happened and how the attack got triggered. When was it planned? By whom was it planned? They try to track phone calls, phone numbers. They also try to find any traces of fingerprints that they can find. They also try to help the police and other law enforcement agencies. Recently, the government announced the case is now registered with NIA, National Investigation Agency. The forensic experts provide the raw material, the data, through physical or chemical evidences to all these agencies here. But this article says there is a very interesting principle in forensic science called the Locard exchange principle. Please remember, what is this principle? Locard exchange principle. Article is saying this is the foundation principle of forensic science. The foundation principle of forensic science, Locard exchange principle. This principle says every contact leaves a trace. What does it say? Every contact leaves a trace. The perpetrator of the crime, the criminal, will definitely bring something to the criminal scene. Definitely he will bring or she will bring. And they will definitely take something back. That's the fundamental here of the Locard principle. The criminal will bring something at the site of the event and the criminal will definitely take something back. Something he will take back. Either particle, either residue or a debris. Something will be finally found that is related to the criminal in that case. Even in the case of blast, where there is a complete fire, where everything is burnt, something will be left behind. A small residue or a particle will at least be associated with the person responsible for the crime. So, microscopic traces, even if they are burnt completely, they will also give you some data about the source of this explosion. Yes, the DNA samples, Reshma, correct. Absolutely, Vikash. The UAPA, correct. 1986 is in question here. 1967 is in question here, correct. Now, under forensic science, there are few principles that are believed. One, experts come, they start taking photographs and they start preparing the sketches of the people on the basis of observation. Second, they start collecting from the debris, from the residue, metal fragments, burnt material, even carbon residues are collected. Later, they are checked through electronic timers. They are checked through detonators and circuits to see if the blast was done through a human action direct or was it done through a remote control. So was it really done by a human who became the human bomb or was it done through a remote control? Then all this evidence is then collected, sealed and transferred for further testing in laboratory. Second step is laboratory. When all this data goes to laboratory, what will happen then? In the laboratory, there are few technologies that are very advanced. One of the technologies is called FTIR technology. This is the technology about Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. You don't have to go in too much detail. Just remember the word FTIR. Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy. What does it mean? Under this, the chemical composition of the materials that are found are detected through light absorption. Second comes Raman spectroscopy. Small solid residues are then sampled and checked from inside. Then there is another technology called ATR FTIR. ATR FTIR. This is all GS paper 3 science and technology. Under this technology, ATR FTIR, we start analyzing small solid residues which are not complex in nature, but we just create larger samples from these smaller molecules. And then ultimately there is X-ray that is done. Energy dispersive X-ray. What's the purpose of the X-ray? To determine the composition of the elements behind the material used. Was it nitrogen? Was it ammonia? Was it carbon? Was it sulfur? All those small traces are discovered by using energy dispersive X-ray. Then comes scanning electron microscopy, under which various fragments are studied at the tiniest level possible. The lowest possible atom is also investigated and studied to relate it to the explosive material. Then a 3D scanning is done to see how did the fire spread. Fire is always detected by a technique called laser based scene mapping. Laser based scene mapping. LBSM. It creates a 3D image of the whole area to see how did the fire start and from which source did the fire start and spread. Last is flashpoint testing. Under flashpoint testing, we try to see which liquids were available that could have been used as flammable liquids to spread the fire. Which chemicals could have supported the blast and the spread of the destructive fire everywhere. Now, the experts undergo all these steps, and ultimately, then the data that is collected helps us to understand how much damage took place within what radius. It also helps us in understanding whether it was an RDX, whether it was a TNT, or whether it was a PETN that was used in the process of bombing. Then comes the role of various departments. You will have cyber forensic people who see the CCTV. Mobile data is collected. Remote control triggers are found. Then there are physical divisions who are now trying to monitor and survey the area that even after the blast, anybody is coming here. Any suspicious movement is happening. A very advanced form of chemist activity is involved to see the source of these materials, like you are saying ammonium nitrate, where did you get it from? Where was it sourced from? Ultimately, as Reshma said, DNA forensic comes into picture. The victims are identified through the dead body and the remains of these people, which is also very essential for giving a legal closure to the case. Ultimately, we do some kind of forensic etching. We try to retrieve all the erased number of, say, for example, car, vehicle. What was the number of that car that was used for the crime? Which cars were present at the scene of the crime? All these are discovered by using some kind of a thermochemical examination. And ultimately, all the evidences that are collected under Indian Evidence Act 1872, Section 45, are now submitted in the court where the query is being done. Then ultimately the forensic science laboratories that is operating under state government's home departments under Ministry of Home Affairs will also continuously keep on updating the government departments about the latest findings if they have. Now imagine what a complicated process this is. For the last 10 minutes, I'm constantly talking. You are listening. We are trying to verbalize the whole process, but imagine in reality when that happens, how much manpower goes behind it, how much data is utilized, how much coordination and secrecy is supposed to be used. Just imagine one mistake can falter the whole process. Look at the amount of departments that are being used, the money that's being spent, right? So that's why Indian forensic investigation needs more financing. There are some problems here. Lack of skilled manpower is there. There is a poor coordination. There is a political pressure and politics related with minority, religion, caste that also comes in the picture. Political parties make it a controversial issue. They make it an electoral issue rather than understanding that people working with forensic are actually scientists. They need funding, they need more skill, they need more coordination. Custody becomes questionable. Who will keep the custody of the accused? Transferring of the accused becomes problematic and highly political. In India, majority equipment that's being used is slightly outdated now across most of the state forensic departments that leads to inaccurate results. There is a high case load already. I told you once that Supreme Court of India right now is working in its full capacity. Full capacity, you know that. Don't you know that? You know that, right? You remember or not? Everybody forgot? What happened? This issue is boring, is it? Yes, Rishi? 2,900 kgs of ammonium nitrate? How come everyone is listening spellbound? What happened? Is it a boring issue? Okay, so I told you once, Supreme Court is working in full capacity right now. We have almost 33 judges on the panel. Yes, but still Supreme Court has, yes, very good, 80 cases pending. 81. 81. How many cases are still pending? 81,000 cases are pending. 81,000 cases still pending in front of the Supreme Court. So imagine how many cases must be pending in front of the forensic departments and laboratories. Oh, so many of them. Absolutely. As aspirant, you're saying 88. Okay, was it 88? Oh my God, 88,417 cases. I'm sorry, not 81. Thank you so much for the correction, aspirant. 88,000 cases, imagine, not 81, 88. Despite full capacity. Yes. So now imagine the number of case load in front of. Can you imagine the case load in front of the forensic departments? There is always the problem of media coming and speculating, giving biased news. There is backlog and dependency. So, therefore, today the need of the hour is to reinvigorate India's forensic department. Better equipment, quick dispersal of the cases, lowest possible media speculation, lowest possible politicizing of the issue, more trained manpower to be supplied. Only then can we expect all these cases to be solved timely. Okay, Manisha, are you trying to talk about Raman spectroscopy? Yes. So when we are talking about Raman spectroscopy, we are saying what the forensic department is trying to detect molecular signature behind the explosive. They are trying to discover the molecular structure of, suppose RDX was used or the TNT bomb was used, whichever bomb was used, its molecular structure is broken down and studied in detail. That helps us in understanding the extent of damage, and it helps us in understanding where was it obtained from. Okay, question with reference to forensic investigation in India, these statements are there. One, FTIR, sorry, is used to identify chemical composition of explosive residues based on how sample absorbs the light, infrared light. B, Raman spectroscopy and scanning electron microscopy. They are used to determine molecular structure and morphology. That's the structure of the particles found on the blast site. And 3, Locard's exchange principle means every explosion leaves behind physical fragment of explosives that can be directly matched with the manufacturer. Okay, is it? Is that the Locard's principle? Yes? Is that the Locard principle? Is that what we spoke about? What was Locard principle? What's the confusion here? Locard principle says it is the foundation of forensic science, but it doesn't say this. What does it say? Locard principle says every contact leaves a trace. Every criminal leaves a trace. A criminal will always bring something to the site, and the criminal will always take something away from the site. So every contact will leave a trace, no matter how dangerous the situation, but some particle, some residue will be related to the criminal directly, not to the manufacturer of the explosive. It doesn't say that every explosion leaves a physical fragment of the explosive. No, it doesn't say that. It says every criminal leaves behind some proof, and he takes behind some proof. That's the Locard principle. So 1 and 2 will be valid, not 3. So A will be the answer, not D. I hope it's clear to everyone. And now as I take your leave, a quick reminder. Yes, Bihar has registered 67% voters turnout, thanks to the SIR. Next, the ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, is conducting a very important test that is known as the Gaganyaan Crew Module Safety Test. What is going on? In Uttar Pradesh. In Uttar Pradesh, in a place called Babina Field Firing Range. The ISRO is conducting a test that is called IMAT test. What is the IMAT test? It is Integrated Main Parachute Airdrop Test. Integrated Main Parachute Airdrop test. Why? Because very soon Gaganyaan will take first crewed mission to the space from India. Who is the astronaut involved here? Quickly tell me. Who is the astronaut involved here? I think last topic and last question was really shaky to everyone, was it? Oh, is it? Is that the case, Eric? That's completely okay, Rishi. That's okay. You've all tried very well, and I'm so happy that you understood. That's all I want. That's it. Very good. Vayomitra, Mr. Subhanshu Shukla. Okay, yes, very good, Vikash. Very good, aspirant. Correct, Sangamitra. So, Vayomitra, so now these people will go in space, but you also have to bring them back. Or do you want them to stay in space like Sunita Williams for 11 months? Do you want that to happen? No, right? They have to be brought back safely. If you have to bring them back safely, parachute soft landing is what we are proposing. But we also have to make sure they land back safely on the planet in the ocean. To do that, ISRO is conducting safety return test in the form of IMAT, integrated parachute airdrop test, so that these people, about 10 parachutes of 4 different types, will be able to lodge back, land back in the earth properly. And the main parachute of Gaganyaan, they use a process called step-by-step process known as reefed inflation. What is it known as? Reefed inflation. I will ask this to you on Saturday. I will not ask anything else, only one word I will ask. That why did I mention to you reefed inflation? Because as ISRO is testing parachute safety for landing back the astronauts of Vayomitra, very good, the Gaganyaan mission who are going in the space for the first time, ISRO is using 4 kind of different parachutes for this. 10 parachute, 4 varieties. The process with which ISRO is doing the test is known as step-by-step process, reefed inflation. Correct, aspirant. Yes, Balram. Reefed inflation. Correct. This means parachutes first open partially, which is called reefing. What is reefing? First parachute opens partially, called reefing. Then it completely opens up. That is called de-reefing, disreefing. So the process of reefing is carried out by multiple parachutes together, making sure the astronauts come back safely. Remember the name, that's all. And last but not the least is about Paris Agreement 2015. After 10 years, we are doing the COP30 summit in Belém, Brazil, Conference of Parties. India has one request to make. As India started speaking, it said just one thing. Please don't change the structure of Paris Agreement. Don't change the structure of Paris Agreement. What is the structure of Paris Agreement? Paris Agreement of 2015 has a structure called CBDR. Common but differentiated responsibilities. In 2015, countries like America and Europe had promised that we will give $100 billion per year to poor countries to move towards renewable energy. They broke that promise. Today, the developing countries are saying now the need is that by 2035, we should commit to about $1.35 trillion. But countries like America are not ready to promise that. They are in fact cancelling the Paris Agreement promise. So India has the same request. Please understand that the countries of the global south, countries of the G77 are trying to control their carbon emission. Support them. Support them. At least fulfill some commitment by 2035 by paying some carbon finance to these poor countries. If you do not do that, you are fundamentally breaking the structure of CBDR. And CBDR is the foundation architecture of the COP25. So India, along with many other like-minded countries, are now requesting, do not change this structure, continue the carbon finance process. That's it for the day. That's it for the Hindu of today. Okay? I'll take your leave now. Thank you so much for the beautiful participation. Once again, congratulations to those who've been selected yesterday, and a big inspiration to those who will now write the exam. All the very best to you. My love and blessings are always with you. So thank you so much for this beautiful participation. I will see you tomorrow now. Do remind your friends, your colleagues about the Success in Prelims initiative. In fact, it's for you also. If you are really targeting Prelims 2026, you know hardly any time is left now. So you can join this crash course. I personally recommend because the price is quite affordable. Like 4,999 is something that we can manage. Most of us can manage. But in return, it gives us full preparation for prelims, including CSAT. It could be a great way of ensuring that, yes, now also you can prepare on time and be very confident for the paper. Use code SPLY for the same. 15th is when, November is when the batch is beginning. Okay, so now I'll take your leave. Thank you so much. The process prevents a sudden powerful jerk, Ramu. Yes, that is the process of reefed inflation. Thank you. Thank you, Kojumba, for all these names of the captains who are traveling. Yes, that's correct, Dipesh. Wonderful. That's the NASA ISRO Apex mission. A round of applause for you. I asked you that question about joint safety landing. Yes, that's NASA. Very, very good. So now thank you, each one of you, my dear. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Athokpam, Sangamitra, Manisha. Yes, Manisha, I'll confirm tomorrow. Balram, Mumtaz, Ramu, Rishi, Vikas, Reshma, Eric, Golu, and Sita Ram, aspirants, Sumed. And then you have Lenny, of course, Vangula is there, Rishi is there, Kojumba is there, Manisha is there. So many aspirants are there. So all the names that I can see, I'm saying. And for those I can't see, also same thing. So thank you so much. Yes, I'll see you tomorrow. God bless you. Stay happy, stay blessed. Thank you, Ramu. Bye bye.